Let's do a show of hands. How many of you all have been given the opportunity, and it's been presented like that, you now have the opportunity to use a coding assistant, whether it be Copilot, right? And another show of hands, and of course, like remember the camera is pointing to me, was that you were volunteered for this, right? Like how many of you would have like honestly chosen to have that opportunity as part of your workflows? Like day to day, I have my job and now I gotta learn to use this thing, right? Perfect. And listen, nobody's gonna know our work. We all love our jobs, yay. But realistically speaking, right, most of us have been volunteered to do this. We have executive mandates. You need to incorporate AI. This is happening at my company. We need to show how we're using our own tools, and we're starting to be rated and incorporating part of our usage as part of our performance, which is sort of an interesting concept. But there you are. So we were given this opportunity to adopt these tools, right? Many of us were voluntold to do this, but there is this clear shift happening, right? We're going from coding assistants as autocomplete to now we have agents that are doing complete orchestrations. They are deploying code, and sometimes they're writing, they're testing, they're doing everything. And there is a challenge that we haven't talked about much, and is that those digital assistants, those digital pairs are now very much part of your organizations. And absolutely no one really told me, for one, how to work with them. No one has really made that connection of like, okay, how are we supposed to redefine what organizational software development lifecycle looks like, incorporating these agents in. And so we're not only just adopting these new tools, we're changing the way that we're developing. We're changing the way that we're developing for like the time to come. This is the future. As many of us begrudgingly are doing things, we're not going backwards. If anything, they're getting embedded deeper into our entire life cycle. So it behooves us, something that Aaron said in the keynote this morning that kind of hit me like a truck. And it's like, well, you're going to fight or you're going to make the system work to your advantage, right? And if you were at the keynote, you know what I'm talking about. And so hopefully presenting to you this framework and these ideas is a way of you taking an opportunity to make the system as it is work to your advantage, instead of like me saying, but why are we doing that? It's too much. We shouldn't be doing things. So we go back to, so what do you want me to do? Are we able to? You got more? Okay, well, listen, we're gonna do it without slides. I mean, I do want you guys to see though. Let me see. How about we turn this little monitor so that my friends can see? Yeah, would that work? Let's do that. In the meantime, let's do that. And I'm sorry, friends, but that might be, that might be the only way to go. And then you have to let me know if you actually see the slide move when I click next there. Did it move? Did anything happen? No? Oh, that's fun. That's really fun. Okay, well. Okay, let's see. I'm plugging the screen again. What do you see now? Okay, brilliant. Let's try and do, let's see. Should we Control Alt Delete? Is that what we do? Okay, now I'm gonna try and drag a different window over there. Did you see a window coming over there? Is it coming? You see my mouse on the monitor, okay. How about this? Let's turn this back towards me so that I can see what I'm doing. For one, because then that way I can just use the same little one before. Okay, brilliant. Thank you all so much for your patience. Sorry these things happen. And this is absolutely no reflection on the organizers. They put on a fantastic conference. These things just, sometimes that's how it goes. And there's nothing we can do about it, really. Okay, so now you see my mouse, and I'm just gonna put it over here where it says next, so that we can, boom, there we are. All right, money. Okay, so we go back to the way that pair programming started, right? All of you, if you were lucky enough to work in person in office, you remember pair programming at the beginning. You used to go sit next to your buddy, one keyboard, both of you collaborating, sharing ideas, and both of you giving each other feedback, and it was all good times, right? And now the pair that you have, it could be Claude, it could be Copilot, it could be you're working within cursors, whatever you're using. So now you're using, instead of you and your body, you have this agent working with you, right? And so now you need to learn to work with the tool beyond learning how to work with your body and learn the feedback cycle and learn how to avoid bottlenecks and all that. And then we're not talking about that at all. So the organizations that I noticed that have been the most successful are those that are treating this pair programming experience and the way that you interact with the agents as, okay, this is a capable engineer also. We're not going to call him a junior because I feel like that's kind of insulting to juniors. But, now we look at the little one. But they're looking at it more as, instead of looking at it as a okay, yeah, this is a magical thing I can throw any issue that I've been unable to debug, and they're gonna fix everything. Treating more as a peer and someone that you can actually do this pair programming experience with, right? The folks that are adopting that mindset as a peer collaborator rather than a pair collaborator, yeah, they're being more successful. That's just the reality. There is a quick number here from a company that, not a fan, but they did a good survey. This came out last year. They say 50% of companies are going to start using agentic workflows in their software development lifecycle is happening. It's supposed to go up to 75% next year. And then, we're good. Yay! Success. No, you're great. And then, so we have this massive adoption curve, right? Like it's going from 50 to 75 to, some people on the internet said we're all being replaced tomorrow. But then the same data show that organizational leaders also feel like they have big problems. Like 60% of them are very concerned about adoption, and it has nothing to do with the quality of the agent, the quality of your assistant, but it has to do with the actual organizational orchestration of bringing the agents. It has to do with integrating with legacy code systems, and it has to do with you, because if you're not happy, nobody's happy, right? So that's what we're going to talk about today. The bottleneck is not the AI anymore, it's us in a way. And when I say us, I don't mean all of you sitting here. I mean the leadership that's pushing this massive adoption without stopping to figure out governance first. So there has been some really interesting conversations going on online. And this is for the folks that are online that can take a quick poll. And if you want to take it here, we can do show of hands as well. Because I just told you a lot of problems, and problems that are not for you to solve, that are more relevant to your leadership. If you're an engineering manager and you're sitting here, this is also not a dig at you, it's just the reality. I'd love to know, show of hands again, and we can go 5-1, nothing. And again, the camera is facing me, so it's a safe space. How many of you are 100% or more than, you feel sufficiently confident in that your leadership's approach to adoption of agentic workflows inside your life cycles is good? It's efficient. They know what they're doing. They've given us guidance, and I see no hands. And I see a lot of folks that love their jobs, and they're like, yeah, five. Great job. No, but in reality, we're not. We don't have a high value of confidence in what our leadership is bringing to the table there. Because again, going back, we're great at spinning up the tools, but not so much about setting that standards. So this is intended to give that leadership an idea, a framework that you can then use. I read a ton of research. I looked at our own case studies with our customers. I looked at our own case studies internally, because believe it or not, even though that Copilot is our Chinese star, we also have a lot of internal resistance to adoption of these tools. We still do. But again, we're not going backwards. If anything, it's getting more and more embedded. So hopefully by the end of this talk, you feel like you can either have a little bit more confidence in the way that you're presenting this to your teams, if you are in that leadership path. And if you're not, this is an opportunity for you to be the star of your teams. And if you're looking for a job, this is an opportunity for you to differentiate yourself from another person, because you're you're using these tools. I have ideas on how we can actually make this a better experience, how we can be more effective in our adoption. So hopefully that level of confidence rises. These are the 3 patterns that I've noticed work. And this is, again, this steal from ton of research. I list all the case studies on the repo, and I'm going to share it with you. I'm going to go over each one of them just so that we can sort of have a general understanding of what the ideas are. And then I'm going to share with you the educational framework that's got some surveys and it's got some actionable things that you can take back to your teams. And then hopefully start either, again, setting up a little bit more confidence into your team leadership because now they have the tools, or you become that leader that's bringing those tools to your teams. The first one is standards over speed. I have seen catastrophic failures. And 9 times out of 10, it happens because teams jump straight out. They want to measure productivity. And I know that this isn't happening because you and your engineering leaders are saying, well, how fast are they going now? No, this is usually coming from higher up. They want to know how many people they can put in other things. Let's put it that way. And so the mandate usually is, okay, start measuring productivity metrics. Do it now. But turns out to be successful, you actually need to set clear standards first and set those paths is the most important thing that you can do. The teams that are not just throwing the tools are the developers and are actually taking the time to set the standards and investing in that documentation and doing all those things. They're doing much better. Then another pattern is the fluency, the independency. I'll dig a little bit more into that. And then standards over speed. I think that was the first one, and I was just backwards, and that's fine. So let's start there, shall we? The teams that are investing upfront in documentation are doing a much better job at adoption and are having much, much better results. Why? Because they're starting with a more pragmatic approach. Documenting is so important. How many of us have been bogged down by doing ADRs? And sometimes it gets pedantic, right? You're like, why do we know what we know, but guess what? The rest of the humans in our team don't know. And the AI sure as heck doesn't. So having those clear sets of documents to begin with is key. When we invest in documentation up front and make it so clear that both the humans and the AIs completely understand it, they can follow it, you start building trust gradually on the output of the AI, but also the way that your team is integrating that. And we'll notice that the way that the generated code starts catching maybe edge cases that your own humans couldn't catch before. And it's not because the AI is getting more intelligent, although the models are getting better. It's more because you've done such a good job documenting what's good that is both the humans and the AI have a clear understanding of what that is, what success looks like. So to set ourselves up for success, we should definitely invest on documentation and setting those standards first. I like to think about the way we document this very much like ADRs. It can be pedantic, it can be, okay, it's annoying, but you do it once and you're setting up yourself for success. And then I am that person. I am the chiller of my company. When there's something new and they say somebody wants to dog food this, I'm like the first one. But guess what? I am not the best person for you to invest time on because I am your eager and like, I want to try something new and I'm going to give you positive, negative feedback. But if you want to incorporate this into your company and you're starting to feel some resistance, start with your more senior people. Those are the people that you need to go to first. And typically what happens, and this has been again from all the case studies that I distilled through, once those more senior folks are on board and they start seeing the wins, then it'll be easier for others to follow. So it's great to have your hype people that are like, yeah, let's do it. But maybe focus a little bit more on the senior engineering leadership there. So clear standards equal more effective AI. Then measured experience and not just output. This is so key. And it ties into that productivity versus, okay, how fast are we moving? Teams are shipping faster, right? Like 30% faster in some cases. And I have some clear case studies I can share with that. But then underneath that speed, there is this fragility and this scary technical debt that we think is not our problem, but it will eventually become our problem. So that rising fragility, the code that is not understood is a problem. Noticing the patterns of leadership that have been successful, when they see this, when they see, yes, they're committing, our engineers are committing faster. But sugar, do they know what they're committing? And I know a lot of us, I'm guilty of that because there's a lot of frameworks I don't know. I'm not a great developer. So I lean a lot on it. And then I'm like, well, did you really understand what you just did? So it's worth taking a moment to investigate within your teams if they're actually learning or they're just pushing pixels faster. Are they trusting the AI suggestions more or less? And this goes back to setting that documentation and standards. Once you know you and your leadership have determined what good is, it'll be easier for you to know if you're actually doing the right thing and if you're okay to trust it or not. And then the growing confidence, right? I know I've become overconfident on things that I have no business being in. And it's scary to build that technical depth, not only for your companies, but for yourself. One thing I noticed a company did, they started doing this 1 day a week where there is no AI tooling. And listen, I know this, like once you're used to the remote control, you don't want to get up and go turn the TV. I don't think they even make TVs like that anymore. So I dated myself. But, do that for yourself, for your own competency. Take one day a week that you say, you know what? I'm not going to ask ChatGPT any questions today, and see how that feels. That's going to help you not only stay sharp and keep your skills sharp, but also thinking a little bit more independently, right? So the teams that are tracking experience from that point of view, measuring both the flow states, and yes, the speed is great, but also measuring the experience and those quality metrics, those teams are building some lasting capacity, not just velocity. That's the second pattern. The third pattern, it's this one that I think is one of the most important ones, how fluency beats dependency. And I'm, again, guilty of that. And this advice is coming straight from our own enterprise playbook. We designed these communities of practice internally, yet another Slack channel. But it's actually a really helpful Slack channel. It's called How Do I with AI. And people are coming in and they're sharing their wins, be it tiny, be it big. Just when they have those aha moments, you create an intentional space for folks to share it, right? And you can do it any way you want to. It can be formal, informal, it can be in GitHub discussions, as long as you're documenting these things. This is going to help the more senior people and your leadership that you're hopefully trying to win and get them to adopt faster, to become the mentors and facilitators. And then the junior people are going to learn to sharpen the skills to evaluate when I should trust this, when I shouldn't trust it. And it's okay for all of us to question it, right? All of that ultimately raises our AI competency and for our whole team. So when we have these teams with the structured knowledge sharing, when we have this broad space where we can collectively, not only the wins, but also the bad points, documenting them, when we can discover and broadcast this and debate it openly, we're going to be more adaptable, more skilled, and more resilient than the teams that are just solely relying on a specific group of people that have been your believers from the beginning. But this is really empowering folks to share their experiences, their true experiences. So I shared with you these 3 patterns. This is all the pedantic, boring stuff from talk, right? There was a lot there. There was a lot of information that came from the surveys. And then I started to think, well, what can we do? How can we apply that into a framework? And this is what I'm bringing you today. So again, it could apply to you, it could not apply to you. Maybe your team is already have a system in place, but I want you to take what's good and leave the rest. And these are 4 parts to this framework. Again, I'll share the repo with everyone so that you can sort of lean into it. We're going to take a look at the interactive tools. Again, proven on patterns that work. And then hopefully when I click here, it took us there. Great. I was scared, y'all. All right. So I was a little bit terrified. So we're starting with this AI decision tree. So because we have these mandates from our leadership that we have to use AI tools. Sometimes we're using AI tools for problems that we don't necessarily need AI tools for, right? So there's a little matrix at the bottom here that give you sort of an overview of some points that you can consider. And again, this is going to be more up to your organizational practices than any 25,000 pages of research that we distill. What your organization mandates will be key here, but this is a good starting point for you. And then so we can play around with it. It's going to evaluate whether it be from security, risk level, from the experience that you have within your own teams. And then it might give you a very high level suggestion, right? Okay, maybe you should start with assistance instead of diving in. I like this for myself because again, what is it? When you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. What's the saying? Exactly. And sometimes you don't need a hammer. So it's a good way for you to take a moment of pause and evaluate what you're using AI for. And then go from there. That is one of the points. Let me go back. The second piece on this is going to be this maturity assessment. And this is something that you can take back to your teams. And it's a 5-minute assessment. All it's going to do is it's going to give you some ideas of where you are in competency levels, on understanding. There's a lot of questions there that are a bit pedantic, but they have to do with documentation and they have to do the weights on governance and policy. So again, these are all standard points, just standing points. If you have set standards for your organization, please take those and dump it into something that LMs love to read, and then go back and alter this so that you're actually working with the guidance that matters to you. It's going to give you a score at the end, and then you can go from there and kind of assess what areas you and your teams should focus. And if you're working on your own, you're like, Andrea, I'm a team of me. Well, you should still start setting those standards for yourself, because hopefully one day your team goes to 2 and 3 and 4, and now all these things are documented and you're ready to scale. Then the third piece to this framework is going to be the teaching moments. These are just simply templates that I said. There is a couple of a quick capture one and a detailed learning entry. And you can see that the questions are kind of, okay, well, what does that mean? This is just to make it easier for you to start thinking about what should I be documenting? We have very set practices internally for what an ADR looks like. We have 0 set practices internally for what feedback on the tools that we use should look like. And so when we start setting those standards, again, knowledge and data are power. So we're able to actually set that. And then finally, my favorite, and I think the most important thing that we need to be focused on, and that is the developer health check. And again, if it's a team of you, a team of 20, it doesn't matter. Start looking at the way that you're integrating tools within your own workflows, and then start really pragmatically evaluating, did I need a hammer? Did I not? Am I using the best practices? Am I not? There is a ton of stuff here that you can scroll through, and the focus on time, I'm going to scroll rather fast. And then on like a true meta way of living and life, I added some open field questions. And because I'm not a backend developer, this has no backend. I'm not collecting your data. It's running off of GitHub options using the inference from GitHub models. If you want to fork it and add a backend and use it, go for it. That would be amazing. But it's based on a prompt that is distilled again from the research, but it's gonna evaluate the weight of the answers in the scores plus these open questions. So this is where your brand new rock star can say, I really hate this tool. Why are you making me use it? And one thing that I would suggest is that you give this as an opportunity for people to be completely open and honest, and just provide this feedback in an anonymous way. If you're a team of 1, well, you know what's up. But if not, then it's an opportunity for you to actually have actionable data that you can then benchmark, you can then go back to. And as you shift in focus and you're thinking, okay, what can I do to encourage developers to actually use this tool? Then you have something to measure it against. I'm going to ask you this question now, and then 90 days from now, I'll go back to it. So just some small things that you can start doing today. I'll go back to the presentation quickly, and I know we're close to time and I don't want to cut off from your lunchtime. But once we get through this entire sort of framework of tools, again, take what you can, use what you want to, leave the rest. I just don't want us to forget that all of this is just for us to be amplified at work. I hate people that are saying that we shouldn't learn to code anymore because now we're being replaced. And honestly, I think it was Andrea did this talk a couple of weeks ago. I'll link it on my notes as well. He was like, every time that software development has become easier, there's actually more people that needs to learn to code than otherwise. Like from punch cards, like assembly, COBOL, and now AI assistant. This is not changing. So it's important for us to maintain our place in this space and to use the tools to our advantage. So like Aaron said today, do we need to set it on fire or do we need to make it work for us? So remember, those patterns are going to help you sort of separate the chaos from the winning. And if you don't work in a team or you don't have a need to adopt this, it doesn't matter. Adopt it in your own practices. I think it's going to help regardless. So take some agency on your own usage. I've done this. It's a hard look at myself, y'all. It was not easy. But what is helping, what is not, what I'm overusing and what I'm not, what I should sharpen skills, what I can focus. Taking the survey, as pedantic as it might be a moment of pause for you to really evaluate how much are we leaning on. And then once you have that information as a team, then you can set the appropriate guardrails. Then you can set the whatever data access rules, whatever other maybe security key points you were missing that you haven't communicated to your team. And guess what? If your team doesn't know it, the AI for sure does not. This is why documentation is so important when it comes to this. So of course, just some very abstract idea what to expect. I wanted to do a slide with somebody crying, but I'll keep it professional here. But when you first bring these tools, 9 times out of 10, people are going to be sick and tired. I have so much work to do. I don't want to go learn how to use something new. But again, this is the vision that we are now in and that we're sold on and where we are. So week by week, hopefully, ideally, you start seeing some more buy-in. You start seeing people sharing those aha moments. If you create those spaces intentionally, that's going to be good for you in the end. And then hopefully your teams become the teams that everyone wants to be a part of because you're the fun teams. You're the cool teams. You're the teams that people want to learn. There's a really good study by Microsoft that's based on like an 11-week ramp and rate of adoption. I'll share that as well. So ideally, I wanted to put this here because I want us to remember that this is not an overnight process, and we can't go at it like bulls and ram down. And I know this has been the experience for a lot of us, where we have been forced to do things. And now, by the end of this quarter, I need to see how much you're using this tool, and your rating depends on it. And so let's take a moment of pause and kind of stop bulldozing and stop hammering things, especially if you're a team leader. And keep these principles in mind. Establishing those guardrails and measuring the impact in this way is going to help us so much more in the long run. We're seriously redefining the way that software development is going to work in the next decade. And it's up to us, y'all. It's up to us. We have to do this work. I like this, keeping humans in the loop. For security purposes, of course, the human in the loop is so important, but also for taste. Because I think we're in a moment where we're changing the way that code is. And if we don't voice our opinions and document it, it's going to look the same. Like it's only going to look, I dare say, worse or not ideal. So again, some 30 to 90 key points for you to think of your ramp up, think about what you can start doing today, do your own code review checklist, and then find some safe use cases where you can maybe 1 point in your software's lifecycle you can start assigning to AI. Maybe 1 point. And if you feel like confident enough that you can use that as a guinea pig to establish these processes, then you scale that out. Focusing on developer sentiment. I know a lot of us have been of that school of like, when it's your job and your sentiment should be you get a paycheck, but I promise you'll have a much happier workforce and a much easier adoption of these tools if you take a moment to actually measure that experience and then take that actionable feedback into whatever it is that you're bringing to implement. When you do that, then you can focus on the rest, because honestly, only 20% of the day is code. The rest of the time you're planning. The higher you get in your companies, you're more concerned about politics and orchestrating and what vendors you're using and testing new use cases. So just keep it in mind that only 20% of it is code. We can make that easier and we can make that implementation of this better. So all that to set the guardrails that are important. So pick one workflow this week. It doesn't have to be something huge. And then add one metric. One metric that I want to share now, I don't think I put it there, is like maybe instead of measuring the lines of acceptance, and this is something that Copilot as a whole is getting some really good investment on metrics for you, all of you to see. Instead of, okay, I accepted this much of it, how much did you reject? That's a good point of sort of you saying that understanding of your own usage. And then if you're, at the team level, organization level, there's going to be other dashboards there where you have more intelligence. I hope that you can take one of these things with you today and that you can use them. Again, all of this is going to be in a repo. It's open, fork it, destroy it. There is no backend to it. There is no data retention. But I do want you to hopefully go back to your teams with a better idea of how we can keep the taste in, but also work better. And I think that might be my last slide. That's it. Thank you all so much for your time. You're awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And this is the short link. It's peer-to-peer. I'd love for you to go in, and if you actually end up using it, send me a message. Let me know. If you're like super nerd-sniped into things, like I normally am, and you actually end up submitting a pull request today, let me know if you do it before I leave. I'll dig into my bag and see what else I got in there. But honestly, I seen so much success, but also so much epic failure. And I really think it's us. We're not doing a good job at talking about it. That's another point from Aaron's amazing presentation. It's like, you gotta talk about it. So I'm happy that I was able to do that. And I hope this wasn't too fast and too furious for all of you. I am a la Colombia Dev online. Happy to talk to you all outside at lunch. But thank you. I appreciate you being here. I know you had a lot of choice. I wanted to go to Resell Stock, but I had to come. So I appreciate y'all. Thank you so much. Okay.